Hello and welcome to Mediator Musings. I'm Joanne Law and today's guest is Phil Pollard. I've invited Phil along to share some of his insights as a relationship and mindset specialist and to talk about the fascinating work that he's doing in remote Indigenous communities. Phil is a trainer, facilitator and coach who provides services through his own business, Ideal Life Group, as well as through Bounce Australia, National Employment Services Association and Icon Institute of Australia. You'll find the links mentioned in the podcast and more information about Phil on the Mediation Institute website. Just go to mediationinstitute.edu.au and search for Phil Pollard. Enjoy. Phil, sounds like you've been working right across the spectrum with individuals, couples, people in business, in workplace. Is that right?
It's when I look back on the last since 2004. What does that make it now? 15 years doing like my expertise has been in human behaviour, and at the root of every human behaviour is what goes on internally with an individual, and that's been the thing that's fascinated me about dealing with people.
Yes.
Including myself.
Yes, it does help if we don't exclude ourselves from the things we're learning.
Look, in every conversation I have with someone, I always learn a little bit more about myself. Look, it's amazing what people reveal about themselves in conversations.
Yeah.
And if you can be the space for them to just say and talk freely, it's amazing what you'll hear, and also what you'll hear between what they're saying and not saying. Does that make any sense?
It makes complete sense because as a mediator, that's really what we're doing. Our job is to create that space and facilitate that conversation and listen to what's being said, what's not being said.
You learn more about someone in what they don't say.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a distinction out there, and Tony Robbins puts it out there beautifully. He says we're either heading towards pleasure or away from pain at any given moment. So anything that someone says, they either want to make themselves look better than maybe they possibly can be, or definitely don't look bad, make someone else look bad, but not them.
Yeah, comparatively, I'm not so bad. Look at them.
That's right. It's the Australian, the Australian rules when we talk about handballing something.
Yeah.
It's not taking responsibility. Like, well, yeah, I saw it, I noticed it, but did I do anything about it? No, I gave it off to someone else. It's not my responsibility.
It's over there now.
It's over there now. I had a look at it and I didn't know what to do with it, so I gave it to someone else.
Yeah. One of the things that you have done was that you hosted the TV program Coaches on the Couch for a couple of years, which
that was about 18 months. That was with myself and Sharon. We come up with this idea. We're watching a TV show and it was actually on 31, and people were giving I wouldn't say just relationship advice, but advice about life. And it was so, I couldn't believe what they were saying. And I often think, no wonder the society is the way it is. So I want to get professionals in and have them give their professional views. So I got a bunch of, when I say coaches, like coaches can be anything. There was, we had coaches. I think coaches are someone who've been there and done the job and are great at observing and can look at you and just make small and minor adjustments and tweaks.
Yeah.
If you look at, I like to use the analysis of football. The best player is the captain. On the field, it's not the coach.
Yeah.
So the coach is there to watch what each individual does and just tweak it, and you can either take the coaching or not. And that's how I said, because so I've got a bunch of professional people in, and we did a number of episodes over that period. Look, and it's been successful. The amount of conversations and topics that's generated has been amazing. And it's certainly a privilege to do something like that. And we, if anyone gets a chance, coachesonthecouch.com. It's all old stuff now, nothing new on there, but as in we're not adding to it anymore, but we might in a podcast down the track. But as far as doing the TV show, that's behind me now. But as far as the messages that each and every one of those episodes have delivered, I invite people to go through, have a look, see if there's anyone that they connect with, and see if they can just pluck a gem or two out of each of those shows, episodes.
I'm sure there'll be more than a few gems that people will pull out.
Yeah, feel free, no cost.
Yeah, oh, that's a really good price as well.
Yeah.
You've got a book as well, Launch into Your Ideal Life.
Yeah, I put that out 2013, and I use that as a basis. Look, see, here's the thing: when you do a lot of public speaking, like I do, introduce you as an author, you sort of have this author meaning authority.
Yes.
It's because it was my studies up to 2013. Now that was 6 years ago. I've gained a lot more information. I never stop learning. I'm in the whole process of continual and never-ending learnings and improvement.
Yeah.
So even though it was 6 years ago, I could rewrite it and it might be something completely different. But it's a basis, and everyone who's read it just, oh my God, I can hear you talking on it, Phil, and it so makes sense. And you and I know that common sense is not always common. And it's not just common sense stuff, but it's getting you to look at life from the perspective of another and how to do that. And when you can do that, then your life will expand and your listening improves, which means your communication, which is the basis of every relationship we have, will improve as well. And it's for me, it's been like sometimes out of the blue, people will just make a comment because they've bought it now, and it's 6 years after I've written it, and I'll get comments on Amazon. I never bought out as a hard copy. I kept getting requests to do so, but it's up on Amazon, and I wanted to make it as accessible and accessible for everyone. So I chucked on Amazon and put it at that fantastic price of $2.99 US. and I've had readers from all around the globe read that and just say, oh my God, it's so you make everything sound simple. That's always my intent, is to have it sound simple.
Well, I guess that's the test of whether you understand something, isn't it? If you can explain it simply. The test always said if you can explain a concept to an intelligent 12-year-old, then you understand it.
Yeah, and I guess I've got a few of those. I mean, I've got a whole bunch of grandkids, and they're about that age now. And my eldest grandchild is 13, and I've got to explain things to her. She says, "Hey, Poppy, what does this mean?" And she's probably my test client, if that makes sense. If I can explain things, so she goes, "Oh yeah, now I get it." And when, like, she used to get bullied at school. Then we had a conversation about that, how to handle a bully, how she actually attracted the bully, and what behaviour she allowed to be bullied, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And she disappeared that in a conversation, and was able to go to school freshly. And her mum said, "What the hell did you do and say?" It's like a whole different kid going to school now. Turned the hate of school into the love of school and learning. And
no, it's amazing. I had a similar experience working with a young boy who was a bully, and I gave him a power move. Just a resource anchor for anyone that understands NLP. And when I checked in with him, he said, "Oh, the kids aren't annoying anymore. It's okay."
Amazing, right?
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's kind of like magic, but it's not.
Well, it is. It is a bit of magic. It's like when someone buys. Can I ask what sort of car do you drive, Joanne?
I drive a Prius.
A Prius.
Yeah.
And do you see a lot of Priuses on the road?
I do.
You do. Now, I don't drive a Prius. I see the occasional Prius, but I guarantee you would see more than I do, just because they're in the forefront of your mind. That's your environment.
Yeah.
It's the same with anything. When you can start to listen newly and listen without that voice. I mean, that we've all got a voice in our head, one that never shuts up.
Yeah.
And it only comes from what it knows. If we can listen from a space of, well, I'm going to listen to what I could newly hear. What I don't know, I'm going to listen like a 12-year-old. There could be a piece of a gem in here, but if I have my answer halfway prepared, and when they're one or two sentences in, I will stop listening and I won't be able to hear it.
Yeah.
It's like, when we drive down the freeway and we don't remember driving the last 4 or 5 Ks because we come back to consciousness.
Yeah.
Your unconscious mind has got it, by the way. If you don't be concerned about that. I'm sure if a kangaroo jumped out in front of you, you would hit the brakes. And the same with our conversations. When we're having them, we're having this answer, but people, oh, I know what I want to say next.
Yes.
Which is what I liked about this conversation, because we just said, let's free
Yeah. We don't know what we're going to talk about next.
No, we don't. And these are always the best conversations I get to have.
Now, the other thing I definitely do want to talk about is the work you're doing with Aboriginal communities.
Totally. And, you know, and I'm just hearing your broad brush speak about people who work with communities, have better understanding. And I just want to grab that part of it now and just address that, because every community is different.
Yes.
There's no such thing as working in communities. You work in that community and then that community and then that community.
Yeah.
Now, there might be some similarities, but every one of those communities out there are unique.
Yeah.
It's a different mix. You'll have different tribes, different languages. I don't want to say different culture, but a way of taking care of their land will be different than maybe an adjoining land. And when I say land, you know, there's probably 50 plus lands in the map of Australia as we know it. There's 50 plus regions out there and languages that match. And from one end of the country to the other, the languages are so different that they couldn't understand each other if they spoke their language. And it's amazing that as someone who's born in Melbourne, that I can say g'day, I can say ciao. I mean, we can list a whole lot of languages and our readers and all sorts of other languages we speak, but how many Aboriginal languages do we know where we can say hi and bye? It's just like we don't know that stuff, and yet we're living on the land that's been taken care of by them for as long as history has been recorded, thousands of years. But yeah, every community is different, and every time I step into a community, the role I've taken on, initially it was a couple of years ago, 2014, 2013 was the first time I went out to an awesome place called Doomadgee. And Doomadgee's up in the Gulf of Carpentaria, about 212 k's to be exact, east of the NT border, right in the Gulf. And it took a while. I was there probably 16 weeks over 18 months at different times in the 5-week blocks, 3-week blocks and 2-week blocks. And initially, same thing, I went into that community. I wasn't quite sure what they wanted me up there for. I knew they wanted help, that was it. And according to the employment service provider up there, who was contracted in there by the government, they just needed some help and they didn't know where to start. And they saw what we were doing, what I was doing in Melbourne, invited me up, and I said, well, let's just go. And when I landed there, they said, okay, we're going to give you the youth group, and youth are between 18 and 25. And for the first 3 days, all I did was ask questions. So I wasn't going to talk about anything until I fully understood. And every time they were, I guess what they try and do with someone, that they might try and shock them into like, yeah, here's the bad things we do. But for me, it was just like, okay, so how can we do that? Because I'm curious. That's I guess that's what helps me, like as a natural thing. I just want to know. Yeah. My wife often says I've got FOMO, but it's not that. I'm interested in what makes people tick. Yeah. And so when I asked the question, well, what annoys you the most? And it was like, okay, well, we have these 9-year-olds, 10-year-olds, 11-year-olds, 12-year-olds. They come around. They want to buy our cigarettes. They smash letterboxes. They're always breaking into our cars. They'll kick over fences and smash windows. And I said, oh, okay. So what were you doing when you were that age? And they went, oh. Uh-huh. Yeah. I said, can you get that you are the leaders for this community? And these guys are like, what? We're still young. Yeah. We go between 19 and 24. So no, you're not. So look at everyone who's younger than you. Because most of their parents, unfortunately, were probably, how to say this nicely, not around or not present in their lives, not a big, strong part of their
positive
lives,
influence.
and their grandparents were observing. They just would say, no, it's up to my son to take care of my grandson. And I was there for a couple of weeks, and I was talking along with it. I connected really well with the young fellas, and they'd put their arms, Carl, Phil, we'll take it up the waterfall. Now, when you and I mention a waterfall, we might think of a mountain and flowing down. But it's flat. I kept thinking it was a waterfall, but their waterfalls are gorgeous. They're all gorgeous, and they're hidden. Yeah. I'm sure there was a lot of times when I probably felt that I was the only white fellow that had been there, and so I got to visit these places, and their elders said, who are you? You're old white fella coming up from Melbourne, and our young lads have attached here. So then I ran a mentoring program because they said, we want to know what you know and do what you do. Because it made a difference to those kids. I started getting them jobs at local stations. I got a few because they love riding horses. I said, well, they're always looking for cattlemen out there.
Yeah, you get to ride horses all day.
And they were great at breaking them in. There's plenty of wild brumbies up there.
Yeah.
And they would break them in and keep them for themselves. So I said, well, you know, you can get paid and help your family out. You know, you can get it.
Yeah.
You can go buy a Hilux ute for the family if you want, but working for a few months.
Yeah.
So I got like 4 of them jobs in local stations. I got one of the girls a job at the elderly care home, at one of the aged care home.
Yeah.
And one of them a job in the
But what I'm hearing there is you're connecting the job to their values rather than the job to something you're being forced to do it.
Absolutely, and it's why I do what I do, because my number one value is travel. Yeah. I love seeing the world.
Yeah.
When my sisters,
curiosity, I can imagine.
Oh, sure. So how does that work? I mean, I've just had a few weeks in Vietnam at the end of last year, and I've never been there before. It's just amazing people, an amazing place. But when I get asked because I contract to National Employment Services Australia, and when they ring me, they say, hey, Phil, can you go too? They know the answer is going to be yes, because it's going to be somewhere not in Melbourne, right?
That's right, somewhere different and interesting.
Yeah, that's right. And like just before Christmas, I went to a place called Midajulu. Now, Midajulu, I swear I heard that somewhere, and it wasn't until I looked it up. It's the community that's 500 metres from Uluru. So the classroom looks out, and you can't go there as a tourist. You've got to be invited onto that community. So I get wherever I go, and I've been out to the Tiwi Islands and Mornington Island. I get to fly to these awesome places, and I get it's a complete privilege for me to be there and just to listen and to just tell stories.
Yeah.
That's all I'm doing. I listen and I find a story that fits their values, because I work to my values, which is curiosity, how do humans work, and number one, of course, is travel and adventure. Yep. So I'm doing that. Travel and adventure is always going to be there, and then I get to know and understand different people and peoples. I get to learn, because I'm never there for more than 2 or 3 weeks. Maybe I might get 10 words.
Yep.
And this is where my the more important technology helps, because languages can be similar but not the same. I guess there's going to be some words that is the same, like the word Yalaman, meaning horses, because horses were new.
Introduced. So,
they were introduced. Yeah. So that word is across every Indigenous language.
Okay. So they all said, "Oh, what do you call these things?" Oh, Yalaman. Okay.
Yalaman. Yeah. It's written like Yarraman. Yalaman is how they say it, and it's just like trying to get my language around their language as well. Of course, there's always lots of humour in that. I don't know if you picked it up, but I don't take life too seriously.
Yeah.
Only because
pick that up.
No, well, none of us get out alive, you see. So
that's right.
It's like, what's the point?
don't make the time you're here miserable. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm here for a good time, not a long time, as I say.
Yeah, and look, our listeners are mediators, and those two concepts, curiosity and humour, I think are critical to bring into the process. We don't need to make it so dire.
And it's funny, we deal with all sorts of people. In my private practice back here in Melbourne, I do a lot of work with couples and also autistic boys that I worked with for a year and a half just to challenge myself. That was like herding cats. They do. I can get greater results when I get the one-on-one.
What's the saying with autistic people? If you've met one autistic person, you've met one autistic person.
Exactly. There's no such thing as, hey, you're like them. Or you're exactly the same. No. But it happens with everyone as well, I think.
Yeah.
We're all our own unique person as much as we try to fit in.
Yes.
We've all got our own unique thumbprints for a start, but that's just a reflection of our unique values. Because when I used to run rooms, if we had 150, 200 people in a transformational weekend, we would just really understand that, and we would do this survey. List your top values, and we drill down into values because people say, well, family, because that was always a big thing with Indigenous. I said, no, that's a nice roof when you say family. What do you get from your family? Oh, well, I get acceptance. Okay, well, acceptance is important to you. And it's important to a lot of people. So we start drilling down into what does that look like. At the basis of that was love, and so we start to really drill right down into their values and what's important to them. And if someone, like for me, security is not a big thing, but some people rate it up high, and I can start to break that down. Say, well, security, it's really hard again, because the only thing constant in life is change, and you can be sitting pretty and get bowled over the very next ball, and it's happened so many times to a lot of people. Not that we, should feel insecure, but there's some certainty we need to have in our life, like roofs over our head and where the meals are coming from, and enough to get by on. But anything above that, it's when you're looking for certainty. There's no certainty in relationships.
No, and that's a problem. Certainly for people that have those high needs that aren't resilient, that can't move on, that can't accept the decision of their partner and get stuck there.
Look, and whether it's partners, like as in
the relationship partner,
relationships, or another factor, but there's relationships as well between bosses and workers and clients and customers. There's relationships everywhere.
Siblings,
families,
of course, with step families.
It was funny because I've got two sisters, and for one, I never got on with one for a hell of a long time. And when I like to say woke up back in August 2004, it was like, oh my God, she's changed, and she hasn't.
No,
it was all me, but I was able to see her and listen to her newly, and get why she is the way she is. And it was like our relationship is transformed because of that.
And actually, that's the magic that we can bring in mediation, because we create that structure where people actually have to listen instead of being defensive, instead of coming up with their their rationale or reasons or whatever, just to listen and acknowledge. It's
so true.
It's like even in role plays, sometimes you just see a shift in people when they feel heard.
You can, and it's just like when in the conversations I had with her, it was just like she saw me differently as well. And so now I can take the basis of that. So until I repaired my relationships, I couldn't
work with other people.
No, so it's interesting that, and again, because we're human and we've got our values, if I get a couple coming to see me, and I try to see them separately first, if it's possible. You might find yourself, like, as a human, believing one over the other, if that makes sense, or relating to one more than the other. And it's just like, as a professional, we have to not do that. If there's a way of saying it differently, it's like catching ourselves doing that. And just going back to taking our notes and listening through that, because quite often when I get the other party to come in, whether it's intimate relationship or a business relationship, it's like they're describing someone else. It's like this person that I was expecting to come into the room is nothing. Certainly not the monster I imagined, but a really great person. I'm just like, okay, I'll hear their side of the story, and I can then hear where they're not hearing each other.
Yes.
because they're speaking from their own values.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
the only way we can communicate effectively with anyone is to understand the other party's values and communicate from that point.
Yeah, and that's a really, really important point, because if you don't do that, if you don't understand the other person's values and beliefs, or recognize that they're different, the other person's behavior, if you filter the other person through your own beliefs and values, then they're doing things to you, they're deliberately doing it to upset you, and they're probably not.
No, and it's a hard thing to do. Like as a coach or a counselor or a mediator, judge, jury, we have this, and it's just like, okay, we need to just listen
Yeah.
newly ourselves and
Yeah.
have any change we're going to try to implement from their set of values, from what's important to them.
Yeah.
And it's always that question, so what's important to you?
Yeah. In
And
some
again,
way.
drilling down
Yeah, look, in some ways we're kind of fighting against our own brains.
constantly.
Yeah, because they're designed to make judgment and quickly to sort things and work out that's what that is, so that we don't have to waste power on that because we know what it is. So we've got to fight that tendency that we have,
Exactly.
I think.
Yeah, because the more we know, the more we don't really,
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
And you're spot on, Joanne, because that's what we do. We look at things. We can judge someone by the way they look.
Yeah.
In a blink, we've hung, drawn, and quartered them.
Yep.
And we know time and time again that's not the truth.
No.
But we still do it automatically, right? As human beings, we're automatics in doing that.
Yeah.
It's catching, as a professional, it's catching that automatic. And just
look, it is. That came home to me years ago. I was running a workshop for actually a group of people from the tax office in Canberra, and we were doing we played a game where you've got it was a conversations type game, and there was a lady from India originally, quite a heavy accent, very quiet, very shy. She was the most profound thinker that everyone was just looking. Wow, we had no possible idea that this was going on behind the the scenes, and it was it was amazing until we actually have a conversation with people. It's easy just to miss.
Exactly, because if someone isn't the introvert, and I might, just while we're on that, I might relate that to what happens in communities. Because I always travel with a female when I'm going out, simply because of understanding the culture with our Indigenous, is that females will be introverted in a group when there's mixed gender. And I will often say to the groups, okay, so here's what we need to talk about and come up with a lot of ideas about things. And if I leave it in the room, it'll just be male dominated. And what I always say is, look, I'm gonna go out under the tree, and if you want to come out and sit with me, we'll talk about that. If you want to stay here in the air conditioned comfort, you can stay in here with Jan, and she'll talk about the same things. And then Jan and I'll get together and we'll take all our notes, because I know none of you like writing, so we're going to do all the writing. And they go, yeah, we hated it. And 100% of the time, 100% of the males come out with me, and 100% of the females go with her.
Yeah.
And at the end of our day, and she goes, you can't believe what these females, they're so passionate about, and they're boisterous. And it might take 2 or 3 days, but eventually we can destroy that between us, because we interact, they understand each other differently, and it's a whole different group that we leave behind every time we go there.
Yeah.
And it's just like, but we're working to a common project.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm really glad you shared that, because we talked about that a little bit before, and the other group in that dynamic, if you've got a full community cross section, is the younger people, and if you share your little trick with them.
Yeah. Well, having them step up and be leaders, where they start to recognise that they can be the ones to take their community forward. They start having the influence on the 9 to 12-year-olds, and then as they're moving into their 20s and 30s. So it's just seeing them as leaders. And I've got this young fellow up in his name's Elijah, and his goal, he's picked a common goal, to be the first Indigenous Prime Minister. Now, I've been coaching him privately on the side. I don't think I mentioned that. He was part of the Indigenous youth that went to Canberra, and he actually got to sit in the House of Parliament, and he was so happy about that.
Yeah.
He was invited up to New York to represent Indigenous lands throughout the world. And he said, "Oh, Phil, I don't know if I should go, and I don't have nothing to say." I just said, "Stop that. That's that other little voice that we speak about. Listen to your heart. Listen to what your ancestors would say and what they would like you to do, and take that with you and just speak naturally." And he went and did it. He had the best fun and thankful, etc. But he's got a way of, we've all got our little doubts back here.
Yeah.
And it's just continually bringing out the leaders and having those common goals. In that, and I don't think it matters whether it's where we come from. We'll have that seed of doubt, and it's finding our internal leader, and it's having a common goal. One of the goals that I'm directed to do by the government is to have more primary school kids go to school in those remote areas. At the minute, sometimes they're around about 40%, somewhere between 20 and 40. And, we'd like them to be above 70, 80%.
Yeah.
And again, it's always, for me, there's a conflict back there because it's like, it's a two-way street. They can learn so much without our education system because they have done. But I paint the picture that they need to do that, change the system from within. That if they're the local doctor, the local copper, the local nurse, the dentist, if they're the ones running their own town, then they can have a bigger say, and then they can run their community, they can run the country. And some of those young fellas are really grabbing that opportunity right now. And I want to do it without the anger that underlays as well. And a lot of them are going, we can get a peaceful way to do that. And there's always the other faction as well, but we can't speak to everyone. We're not always all things to all people.
No, of course not.
But it's finding the common ground. And when they can see a vision, everything else can disappear. Like if they have their conflicts, it's like, okay, so where's our goals? Let's refocus back on that common ground that we need to be heading for, the common goal.
Yeah, and look, it's a challenge that across the area. I know a leader up in the Broome area, and what he had a project with his community who he thought were feeling like victims, and we were stuck in sort of anger and blame and that sort of thing, which, while it might be justified, it's not helpful. So what he had a project to go, he took them up to Bali to help people in communities there that were worse off than them. And that was, an amazing eye-opener for people to sort of realise that they were the ones that were able to be helping.
Absolutely. And it's just like having, when I'm able to tell stories about how bad things really are for everyone else, and where they sit in the world, they get it. Or they go, oh, okay, so we're okay where we are, and now what? So it's the now what that'll drive you forward, knowing that there's always others worse off. And the thing I like to bring is what are we grateful for now, and what would we like more of that we already have, and what do we want less of that we just want to disappear, and then how do we work to either one of those two things. And it's always, as I said, the pleasure and the pain thing. Unfortunately, 90% of people are always doing their actions and their daily work in avoiding the pain. Not everyone's heading towards pleasure. No. So it's like having that switch where you can have more, when I say pleasure, that means like getting lost in something, but working towards your highest values. It's important to you. Like for me, it's like the pleasure of traveling, the pleasure of meeting new people, speaking with new people, finding out what makes them tick, and gleaning some information that I can pass on to others. For me, that's pleasure. Yeah. As well as, riding my motorcycle, that's something else, but I can't do that every time I go away.
No, I imagine not. But you're right. It's, because if you're motivated by avoiding pain, as soon as the pain stops, your motivation stops as well. That's,
it's the reason we have drugs in our society.
Yeah.
It's the quick fix.
Yep.
It's like, I want to get away from this pain. I can escape, whether
Mm.
it's having a dozen beers,
Yeah.
or popping a pill, or
yeah.
something in your vein. It's just like, okay, that's my escape right now.
Yeah.
And it's like, there's other ways.
Mm. Exactly. Yeah.
People often say, Phil, what drug do you want? I said, well, I'm high on life.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I guess I wanted to get your perspective as a coach, as a change agent, I suppose, is what
That's
I'm
a great
getting.
way of saying it.
Yeah, I think that seems to be what you are. You come into the situation and look, okay, how do I help you to change, to get more of what you want, of whoever it is that's your client. Well, do you have any thoughts about mediators or mediation? And I, really a lot of what you're doing is mediation. It mightn't be called
pretty
that,
much
but
is,
it's
yeah. It's this only thing that everyone you'll speak across to, and I know everyone who's listening to this will have their own unique perspective on life, and it is really unique.
Yeah.
And just like our thumbprints, you might find people who match your values to a degree, and they'll be your friends. People who don't have the same value set, you just like, you'll try and rack your head as to how or why, which could end up driving you crazy. I mean, that's the idea of watching. If people watch the news, how can anyone do that? You can never comprehend or find a way that in your set of values you could possibly understand why they did that. You might know, but you won't understand.
Yeah.
So I say, turn off the 6 o'clock news and just talk to the person beside you, or make a call and actually speak to someone live. But that whoever we speak with, whether they're in a professional manner or a private manner, they got their own unique perspective, and so do you. And when we put our professional hats on, it's like, you got to drop your perspective on everything. You've got to be just that space. You've got to be like the freshly painted, well, I don't know, do you paint blackboards? Is there some sort of, you've got to be like a fresh blackboard, or the clean whiteboard. You've got to be the new slate for every piece of information without your own filters. Now, you will have your techniques, your own individual ways of working with those clients, but your toolkit, for want of a better term. But when you listen uniquely, listen newly to everyone.
Yeah.
No one is 100% of anything.
No.
There's no such thing as an angel.
Yeah.
They've got a little bit of devil in them, and no one's all bad. They're all good. That the Eastern yin yang says it perfectly. We've got that. If you recognize something in someone, you've got that to some degree. Like if I think that person's an arsehole, it's just like, man, because if I was that, that's how I judge myself. Yeah. And I've been like that to some degree, which is like, oh my God, I could be, and I don't do that. So because they do, they must be. Which is, hang on, where did that conversation come from? It's letting that one go in my head and just going, okay, so. And I might ask the question, so what had you do that? Because I want to know why. But I don't get lost in the why.
No.
And I don't want them to get lost in the why. If they start going too far back, but because my father, so what? Because my mother did this, so what?
Yeah. You were... But at the choice point where you had the choice to do that or not, you chose to do it.
At the choice point, that's right. Once you get more than 7, it's like, you can either. I find most people are exactly like their parents or exactly not like their parents.
Yeah, that's right. We reject them and we're going to do the opposite. So we make all the mistakes over in the opposite because we don't have a model for that.
My dad was a controller, so and guess what you are, mate?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Look. Absolutely.
Oh yeah. I guess I am.
Yeah.
We ask the questions because we don't always see the person in the mirror.
Yeah, no,
Uh,
that's absolutely, yeah. I didn't like my mum nagging, so I'm too permissive, and yeah,
mm, that's it. How
yeah,
often is that the case? You're covered in tattoos now. It's like, okay.
yeah,
And guess what? Your kids will probably never get one of them.
yeah, yeah. Look,
Because
one
they'll
of
be the rebel.
no, exactly, and there's some keywords that we use that can actually clue us into what we're doing. So one of the things that I'm really hard on when I'm training is using obviously.
Mm.
Because if you're saying obviously, that what you're saying is I've got an assumption about what's true, and
Hmm.
that's, it's
Oh,
clear
look,
to me.
yeah, for me, the one I like using is suggesting.
Yeah,
I don't tell them anything. Like, well, I could suggest, or why don't you consider?
yeah, and
Just consider it.
yeah,
Just consider. And I'll put out a what if.
yeah,
No, if I catch myself telling them, I'll quickly bite my tongue
yeah.
because it's just me catching myself. It's like, oh, okay, and you can't be shooting on people.
No, no, you
Uh,
definitely shouldn't be
you
shooting on
should be
them.
doing it. You shouldn't be doing that. You definitely shouldn't be doing that, Joanne. So
No,
it's a catching yourself. Say, well, you just give them a scenario, and then what if? Tell them
yeah,
a story that's similar or related or completely made up.
mm,
Um, but
yes.
but that's how we've learned our life's a story. We
Yeah.
all we use that expression. So what's your story?
Yeah, and
Well,
that
tell
and
us.
that and that's certainly a challenge for mediators, particularly those that come from a background like law or psychology, where they've been trained to form an opinion
Mm.
about the issue and come up with a solution. And so stepping back from that and actually helping the clients to come up with their solutions.
Oh, look, it's having the
It's
clients come up with their solutions.
yeah.
And again, going back to my Indigenous youth, it was like,
Mm,
what are we going to do with the kids now?
yeah.
And these guys started to come up with, well, we like playing rugby. Oh, man, they are Queensland.
Yeah.
Uh, they like playing rugby, but their nearest town was Mount Isa, which is 6 hours by car.
Yeah.
So I was like, they're not going to go there. Well,
No.
yeah, initially they were in the league, but they'd go down to Mount Isa, wouldn't come back for a week, and next
Yeah.
week they say it's too far to go.
Yeah.
Car breakdown, or it's all dirt roads.
Too hard. Yeah.
So they said,
Yeah.
there's enough people here in town, so they started their own little league. They said and those youth groups, those 19, 20, 22-year-olds, put together a sports carnival just for their community with every kid from that community.
Oh,
And
that's brilliant.
I mean, it's only a community of 1,200, but
Yeah.
when you get 400 kids showing up to an event, that is rare.
Yeah.
I remember that community was, I like to say, it's the size of a postage stamp. It would be maybe 2Ks by 3Ks. That's the whole size of the community.
Yeah.
And it was they had this massive big carnival that they did,
Yeah.
and they're now having it twice a year. And Elijah, who now the kid who wants to be prime minister, I want to say kid, he's just turned 21.
Yeah.
He's
eye on him.
running the show up there.
Yeah.
He's seen as a leader, and he
Yeah.
never saw himself as a leader. He thought his dad was a leader,
Yeah.
and his grandfather and his grandmothers were leaders. But now he is. So,
Yeah.
and I said secretly, everyone in the room is in their own way, and they went, "Oh, guess we are,"
Yeah.
because you're being looked at by those that are younger than you.
Oh,
And
no.
and when their grandparents took it, I mean, for me that was a privilege because they said, hey, "You're letting us know so much and finding different ways of listening and speaking." And they took me out on weekends to some awesome places.
Yeah. Oh,
Some
that's
sacred
great.
places. It was just awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. It's really listening. That's the whole key. I don't care what anyone says. It's listening not from your value zone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Getting over there.
Oh, absolutely. And asking them if
You ask them
understand.
because they'll come up with. I think every human being knows their answer.
Yeah.
They'll come up with the answer. I guarantee it every time.
Yeah.
If you keep asking enough questions, like I said, so what if? And then what if you tried that? Do you think that might work? What if you tried that? I'm not saying you should, but just have a think about it. What might be the outcome? So what ifs, and look, as a suggestion, you could try this because there's no harm. There's no push into that. It's a suggestion. Give it a try. You don't have to.
Yeah.
But thinking it through, what might happen? Close your eyes for a minute and just play that situation out. What might be great? And it's just okay. So, and then they may or may not might find a reason why not to do it.
Yeah.
But then you make another suggestion.
Yeah, Yeah,
Suggestions are
or they
great.
can, yeah, or they
Or
can
considerations.
consider, yeah, options, just, and ideally more than one, so that they're having to make a choice, because,
Well,
it's actually
yeah.
more choice is better than not, because if they, if
Yeah.
there's
Well,
not,
I guess as a mediator and coach, sometimes when you can see it clearly and maybe they can't, or with
yeah,
thinking quickly, you might give an option that's workable and one that's not.
yeah,
Because I don't see anything as right or wrong.
no,
It's either going to work in their life or not work in their life.
yeah. But if
That's
you
it.
have to consider, is this going to work, then you actually have to think about, what's going to be important. What, it creates a train of thought about what, visualizing what would work.
Absolutely.
And out of that, you can, maybe even a better solution than you could possibly come up with, because,
They'll
you're
come up
not
with
the
it. Yeah.
expert of their life. They are.
Usually.
Yeah,
Usually they are.
that's right. They might be the expert. They may not be using their expertise, though.
Yeah. Well, again, people will reveal what they want to reveal to avoid looking bad.
Yeah, absolutely. So
Yeah.
but they're not necessarily telling us the truth, or their
No,
truth even.
their truth. That's correct.
Yeah.
Again, it's well picked up, because there is no truth. It's just their
No.
truth and your truth.
Yeah. Exactly.
Crazy world
So
we live in, right?
I could stay chatting with you all day, but I can't, because I've got a time limit. So we're going to need to finish off.
Oh,
But
yeah.
but I guess just to wrap up, is there any sort of final thoughts that you wanted people, to leave people listening with?
Oh, absolutely. It's just live life to your values, and when we're doing our mediations, listen for what people are saying, and listen for what they're not saying, which is more importantly. And when we try to make a change or communicate, speak from that other person's value sets, and finding that common ground. If you've got two parties, it's finding that common ground. Everything else will disappear.
Yeah.
If they can keep the focus on where they want to go.
Yeah.
They really can.
Yeah.
I've seen it work with couples, and look, I've seen the opposite too, where couples just eye to eye, they're never going to get together, and it's having them separate gracefully.
Yeah, well, but that's a great thing for people as well. When when they come to that real, deep in their gut understanding that the other person doesn't want the same thing as them, and they can accept that, then you don't have the anger and the animosity and the trying to force the other person to do the right thing in their value system.
No, it can disappear, and if you can create a clearer and a potential possibility that's much more awesome than where they currently are with that person, they'll thank you no end.
Yeah, no,
that's guiding them through that. So we're just going to be
wonderful.
we're the guides.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah,
So
I think somewhere I've put myself out as a conflict catalyst. I come in, I bring something into the situation, but then I leave. I'm not the,
no,
it's not my.
you're not there. Yeah, I just had I've had this couple just recently come to mind, and it's now 2 years down the track, and she just. I happened to like something on her Instagram post, and she said, "Hey, it's all because of you, thanks." And I just had to flick it back, said, "No, it's actually you took the actions. I only made suggestions. It was your work and your life, and just awesome." But you do. That's why I do what I do. I love what I do.
It's wonderful. Well,
no matter who I'm speaking with.
Thank you again for sharing. I'll put the links to your books and your websites and everything. So if people do want to follow up, or
if they want to reach out, feel free to do so.
Yep, you're happy for people to do that?
Absolutely, and they should keep being awesome. Sounds like you've got a great bunch tuning into your podcasts.
Oh yeah, our people are amazing.
I totally get that, and keep being that who you are. It's all in your being.
Yeah,
nothing
absolutely.
else. Okay, so keep being great.
Great way to finish it.
I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Phil Pollard as much as I did. There's resources that were mentioned in this conversation available. You can find them on the Mediation Institute website. Just go to mediationinstitute.edu.au and search for Phil Pollard for the post with the links.